The dining hall had gone quiet except for the clink of silverware, and that's when Pamela stood up, wineglass in hand, pointing it at Meredith like a weapon. "Some of us actually contribute to this family," she said, loud enough for all 6 long tables to hear. "And some of us just show up to eat the food other people paid for." Nobody laughed. Nobody breathed. Meredith set down her fork, folded her hands, and smiled like she had all the time in the world. Because what Pamela didn't know, standing there in her cream blazer basking in the silence, was that every plate on every table, every string light strung across that lodge ceiling, every dollar the caterers had been paid, had come out of Meredith's own account. By the time dessert hit the tables, Pamela was going to wish she'd kept her mouth shut. To understand how a woman ends up humiliated at her own grandmother-in-law's 90th birthday for not contributing, you have to go back about 4 months to a phone call that started all of this. Meredith Holt had married into this family 9 years earlier, and in that time she'd learned exactly one rule about the Holt reunions. Pamela Ashworth ran them, and she ran them like a queen running a fiefdom. Callum's older sister was sharp-tongued, image-obsessed, the kind of woman who introduced herself at parties as the one who keeps this whole family together. She volunteered to organize the reunion every single year. She collected what she called the family fund, $500 per household, due 2 months in advance, no exceptions, and every year something mysteriously went wrong. A deposit that didn't clear, a caterer who raised their prices last minute, a venue that conveniently needed an extra payment nobody remembered agreeing to. Callum had grown up believing this was just how his sister operated. A little disorganized, a little dramatic, but well-meaning. Meredith had grown up in a household where money got tracked to the penny, and every year she watched the math not add up. Every year she said nothing, because saying something meant war. This year was different. This year was Grandma Opal's 90th birthday, and the whole family had made it clear this reunion had to be perfect. 90 years old, still sharp as a tack, still the anchor holding everyone together. 3 days at a lake lodge 2 hours outside of town, 40-some relatives flying and driving in from 4 states. Pamela appointed herself chair of the Opal at 90 committee before anyone else could open their mouth. "I've got it handled," she told the family group chat. "Just Venmo me your $500 by the 15th. I've already got quotes from the lodge." Meredith sent her $500 like everybody else. 2 weeks later, curiosity got the better of her, a habit she'd developed after 9 years of watching these reunions nearly implode. She called the lodge directly, introduced herself as family, said she just wanted to confirm some details for the big weekend. "Oh, we haven't received the deposit yet," the woman on the phone told her. Her name was Sonia Delgado, and she sounded apologetic, like she was used to delivering bad news gently. "We've reached out twice. The date's still being held, but if we don't get something by end of week, we may have to release it to another party." Meredith sat with that for a full minute after she hung up. She didn't call Pamela. She didn't post in the group chat. She did the thing she always did when something needed fixing quietly. Opened her banking app and paid the deposit herself. $6,000. Gone in about 90 seconds, sent under her consulting business's name so it wouldn't raise questions. It was for Grandma Opal, she told herself, 90 years old. This was not the year the reunion fell apart over her sister-in-law's spreadsheet fantasies. Over the next month, it kept happening. Sonia would call, gently, professionally, about the catering balance, the linen rental, the extra night the family had added for the actual birthday dinner. Every time, Meredith paid it. Quietly, no announcement, no thanks expected. By the time the reunion actually started, she'd personally covered $19,000. The venue, the caterer, the shuttle service running people to and from the lake, even the cake, a 5-tier thing shaped like Grandma Opal's favorite rose garden. Callum knew some of it. He'd noticed the transfers. "You didn't have to do that," he told her one night, the two of them lying in bed with her laptop open between them, a spreadsheet of payments glowing on the screen. "I know," she said, "but your sister collected over $20,000 from this family. Where do you think that money went?" He didn't have an answer. Neither of them did. Not yet. They found out at the reunion, but not before things got worse first. The first night, everyone gathered in the lodge's great room. Cathedral ceilings, a stone fireplace big enough to stand in, 40-some Holts in various states of jet lag and excitement. Grandma Opal held court in a wingback chair near the fire, a corsage pinned to her cardigan, looking like she might cry from happiness every time someone hugged her. Pamela had set up a poster board near the check-in table. Big, glossy, professionally printed. Family contributions. It read across the top and underneath a list. Every branch of the family, a dollar figure beside their name. The Whitfields, $600. The Osei Marshalls, $500. Down the list it went, name after name, dollar amount after dollar amount. At the bottom, Meredith and Callum, $500. Meredith stood in front of that board for a long moment. Justine, her favorite cousin-in-law, sidled up next to her with a plastic cup of lemonade. "What is this?" Justine muttered. "A public shaming wall?" "Apparently. You know she made everyone else write theirs down bigger on purpose, right? Like the Whitfields didn't actually give 600, they gave 5. Justine stopped herself. "You don't what?" "Never mind. It's petty. Ignore it." Meredith wanted to ignore it. She really did. But the board sat there all 3 days, right by the front door, so every single person walking in or out saw exactly who had given what, and exactly who, according to Pamela's math, had barely bothered. That was just the appetizer. The real moment came the second night, at the big birthday dinner. White tablecloth string lights strung between the porch beams, Grandma Opal at the head table in a dress the color of a summer sky. Pamela had appointed herself MC, because of course she had, and halfway through dinner she tapped her wine glass with a fork and stood up to give what she called a few words of gratitude. She thanked the Whitfields for the flowers. She thanked her own husband, Warren, for handling logistics, which mostly meant driving the rental van. She thanked half a dozen relatives by name, holding her glass up to each one, milking every ounce of appreciation from the room like she was accepting an award. Then her eyes landed on Meredith. "And of course," she said, voice dipping into something syrupy and cruel, "we always appreciate everyone who shows up. Even if some of us," she let the pause hang there, theatrical, "only show up to eat." A ripple of confused laughter went through a few tables, the kind that comes from people who don't quite understand what they just heard but sense they're supposed to react. "Some of us actually contribute to this family," she continued, louder now, glass raised toward Meredith like a toast that was actually an accusation. "And some of us just show up to eat the food other people paid for." The room went dead silent. Grandma Opal's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Callum's jaw tightened so hard Meredith could see the muscle jump in his cheek under the string lights. She didn't flinch. She set her fork down, folded her hands in her lap, and said, calm as still water, "Sit down, Pamela. You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," Pamela shot back, emboldened, clearly expecting the room to back her up. $500 from a household that makes what you two make? That's it? That's your idea of contributing to your own grandmother-in-law's 90th birthday? "Pamela," Callum started, but a hand on his arm stopped him. "Let her finish," Meredith said quietly, rising from her seat too. "She's not done making a fool of herself yet." That got a reaction, a couple of muffled laughs down the table, quickly swallowed. Pamela's face went red. "Excuse me? You heard me. You want to talk about contributions? Let's talk about contributions." She didn't get the chance right away, because that's when Sonia walked in from the kitchen, clipboard in hand, scanning the room for someone. "Sorry to interrupt," she said. "I was told to find Meredith Holt. I just need a signature on the final invoice. We're closing out the account tonight since it's the last full day." Every head at every table turned. "That's me," Meredith said. Sonia smiled, relieved, and crossed the room with the clipboard. "Perfect. So this covers the balance on the extra night, the upgraded linens, and the cake. Puts your total for the weekend at $19,400, all paid in full. Thank you so much for being so responsive this whole time. Honestly, it made my job so much easier. Most clients don't call back the same day." The room didn't make a sound. Pamela's wine glass hung frozen midair, like she'd forgotten it was even in her hand. "I'm sorry," she said, voice suddenly smaller. 19,000, what?" Sonia blinked. glancing between them, sensing she'd walked into something. The full venue balance. Deposit catering, the extra night you all added for the birthday dinner, the cake upgrade. Meredith's been handling all of it since, gosh, back in... She checked her clipboard. Early spring. We would have had to release the date otherwise. Nobody else from the family ever got back to us about the invoices. That's not... Pamela's mouth opened and closed. That's not possible. I collected the family fund, $22,500. I paid the venue myself. You didn't, though, Sonia said, apologetic but plain. I can pull up the payment history if that's helpful. It's all under Meredith's business account. We only ever received one payment from you, and that was a $200 deposit back in March that got refunded because the card declined. You could have heard a pin drop on carpet. Grandma Opal set her fork down very slowly. Pamela, she said, in the voice she used to use when Pamela and Callum were kids caught sneaking cookies before dinner, what exactly did you do with $22,000? There were expenses, Pamela stammered. Planning expenses, administrative costs. I had to. $22,000 in administrative costs? Justine was standing now, arms crossed, done pretending to sip her lemonade. For a poster board and a group chat? You don't understand how much work goes into organizing something like this. I organized my kid's entire birthday party for $200, Justine said. You're telling me a weekend at a lodge somehow needed $22,000 of administrative costs on top of the money Meredith already paid? Warren, Pamela's husband, had gone very quiet at the far end of the table, staring at his plate like it might offer an escape route. Warren, Grandma Opal said, and even at 90, her voice cut through the room like a blade. Did you know about this? He cleared his throat. I knew Pam handled the finances. I didn't ask a lot of questions. Convenient, Justine muttered. Her face had gone from red to a kind of pale, waxy white. She looked at Meredith like she was hoping for a rescue, some quiet understanding between women who'd been in this family a long time. She didn't get one. You collected $22,500 from this family, Meredith said, and her voice didn't rise, didn't shake, which somehow made it worse. You put my name at the bottom of a poster board like I was the one who didn't pay my share. You stood up in front of everyone and called me a freeloader. And this whole time, I was the only one actually paying for anything because you knew this venue was about to cancel on us. And instead of telling the family the truth, you let me quietly fix it so you could keep collecting checks and standing up here taking bows. That's not, I wasn't. The composure cracked completely now. I was going to pay it all back once the money came in from my sister-in-law's side. I just needed a little time to move some things around. It wasn't stealing, it was borrowing. I was going to sort it out before anyone else. Before anyone what? Grandma Opal asked. Before anyone noticed you'd spent $22,000 of this family's money on something that wasn't a reunion? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Sonia, still standing there with her clipboard clutched to her chest, looked like she badly wanted to be anywhere else on earth. I'll just leave this invoice with you, she said to Meredith, setting it gently on the table, and back toward the kitchen door, like a woman retreating from a burning building. Nobody stopped her. Nobody even looked at her leaving. Every eye in the room was locked on Pamela. It was Callum who finally spoke, quiet but steady, the way he only got when he was truly done with something. $22,500, he said. That's what, 4 months of your mortgage? The new kitchen you and Warren were finally doing this year? Is that where it went? She flinched like she'd been slapped. That was answer enough. You don't know what you're talking about, she said, but there was no fire left in it, just the sound of someone trying to hold a door shut that had already blown off its hinges. I think everyone in this room knows exactly what he's talking about, Grandma Opal said. She looked so small in that wingback-turned dinner chair, corsage slightly crooked, but her voice hadn't lost an ounce of its old authority. Pamela, sit down. Grandma, I can explain. Sit down. She sat. The wine glass, still somehow in her hand this whole time, trembled just enough to catch the string lights. For a long moment, nobody said anything. 40-some people who'd flown and driven in from 4 states, sat with their forks halfway to their mouths, watching the family's self-appointed queen shrink into her chair in real time. Then Grandma Opal turned to Meredith, and something in her face softened. "You paid for all of this," she said. "It wasn't a question." "I didn't want the weekend to fall apart," Meredith said. "It's your 90th. I wasn't going to let a canceled venue be the story everyone remembered." $19,400, Grandma Opal repeated slowly, like she was turning the number over in her hands. "Out of your own pocket, and you didn't say a word. I wasn't looking for credit." "No," Grandma Opal said. "I don't imagine you were. That's rather the point, isn't it?" She looked back at Pamela then, and her voice hardened again. "You made that poster board. You stood up in front of this entire family and humiliated a woman who was quietly saving this reunion while you spent our money on granite countertops. Do you have any idea how that looks?" "Grandma, please, can we just—" Her eyes darted around the room looking for an ally, a lifeline, anyone. She found none. Even Warren wouldn't meet her eyes anymore. "No," Grandma Opal said. "We can't just—" "I have been coming to these reunions for 40 years, Pamela, and I have watched you run them like they belonged to you. I let it go because I thought you loved this family enough to want to. I did not know you loved this family's money more." The words landed harder than anything Pamela had said all night, and everyone at those 6 long tables felt it. A couple of relatives actually looked down at their plates out of second-hand embarrassment. Her eyes filled, but nobody moved to comfort her. Not her husband, not her brother. Nobody. "I'll pay it back," she said, voice cracking. "I'll pay Meredith back every cent." "You will," Grandma Opal said. "Starting tonight, you're going to stand up in front of this family the same way you stood up an hour ago, and you're going to tell them exactly what you told me. And then you're going to figure out with your husband how you intend to return every dollar you took that wasn't yours." She looked at Meredith one more time, something desperate in her face, like she still thought there might be a version of this where the two of them quietly worked it out between themselves and nobody else ever had to know the whole truth. Meredith just held her gaze steady, unblinking, and didn't offer her a way out. So she stood. Slowly this time, none of the earlier theater in it. The wine glass got set down on the tablecloth like it had suddenly grown too heavy to hold. "I collected $22,500 from this family for the reunion," she said, and her voice shook the whole way through it. "I used most of it for renovations on our house. I let Meredith cover the actual cost of this weekend without telling anyone, and then I stood up here and called her a freeloader in front of all of you. I'm sorry. I don't have a good excuse." Nobody clapped. Nobody said it was okay. A few relatives just nodded slowly, the way people do when a hard truth finally lines up with what they'd already suspected for years. The Whitfields exchanged a look down the table that said everything about every mysteriously delayed deposit from every reunion before this one. Grandma Opal turned to the room. "The cake," she said, "is paid for. The venue is paid for. Every string light and every plate on this table is paid for by a woman who never once asked to be thanked for it." She lifted her glass, actually lifted it this time, no theater, just plain gratitude. "To Meredith, who I am told is the only reason any of us are sitting here right now." The room rose, slowly then all at once. 40-some Holts standing, glasses lifted, and the applause that followed had nothing performative in it at all. Callum reached over and took Meredith's hand under the table, squeezed it once, and didn't let go for a long time. Pamela sat back down in the middle of it, alone at a table full of people who weren't looking at her anymore. The rest of the weekend played out quieter than anyone expected. The poster board came down before breakfast the next morning. Justine took care of that herself, folding it in half and dropping it straight into the recycling bin by the front desk. Warren spent most of the final day on the phone, presumably with a bank, while Pamela kept mostly to the porch, away from the group photos, away from the toasts, showing up only for meals and leaving early each time. Nobody was cruel to her. Nobody needed to be. The family had already seen what needed seeing. 3 weeks after everyone got home, an envelope showed up at Meredith and Callum's front door. Inside was a check for $19,400 and a note in Pamela's handwriting that read, "I know this doesn't fix what I did, Warren and I are selling the boat. It's the first of a few payments. I'm not asking you to forgive me, just wanted you to know it's coming. Meredith read it twice, then set it on the kitchen counter next to the mail. Well, Callum said, looking over her shoulder. That's something. It's a start, she said. It wasn't the apology that mattered most to her, if she was honest. It was the 2 texts that came in that same week, one from the Whitfields, one from an aunt she barely ever heard from, both of them saying, almost word for word, the same thing. We should have spoken up years ago. We're sorry we let her run things the way she did. Pamela never chaired another reunion. The following year, it was Justine who organized it, with an actual shared spreadsheet everyone could see, itemized down to the napkins. Nobody needed a poster board to know who'd paid what. Everybody just knew, because for the first time in 9 years, there was nothing to hide. Grandma Opal lived to see her 91st birthday, too. Smaller, quieter, at somebody's backyard instead of a lodge on a lake. But nobody stood up that year to shame anybody over money. They'd already learned that lesson the hard way, at a table with string lights and a 5-tier cake shaped like a rose garden, paid for by the one person nobody thought to thank until it was almost too late. If you'd been sitting at that table when Pamela raised her glass, what would you have done? Call her out on the spot, or let the invoice do the talking? Tell me in the comments, and if you liked watching Pamela get exactly what she had coming, hit subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.